the big game in the Pac-12, number 8 Oregon at number 13 Utah. That is at 3:30 Eastern Standard Time on Big Fox, and Gus and Joel will have that game along with Jenny. I'm very excited for this one because we get to see Oregon play against another good football team for just the second time all year. Seriously, I'm excited about this one because I do think that Oregon is still the favorite to win the Pac-12 for me, even as Washington's in the front run. I know Washington is undefeated, and I understand Washington beat Oregon, but I honestly believe that Dan Lanning lost that game for Oregon so much that Oregon didn't lose it themselves. But you know what? That's why games like this one matter, because Utah is also surging. The odds makers have this one at Oregon being favored by 6.5 points in Salt Lake City. Okay, sure, making them a touchdown favorite, touchdown plus the hook. But I understand why. Now, while it's easy to think that Oregon's 38-24 win against Washington State was, well, easy, that kind of robs the Cougars of what I thought was an outstanding showing at times. Like, they jumped out to a 10-0 lead, and they were averaging 7 yards per play against a defense that has shown it will give it up in recent weeks. Now, had the Cougars been better on money down, that is third down, instead of being 4-14, maybe we get more of a ball game. Instead, Oregon runs away with this one 38-24. And the big note from there is having a veteran quarterback really does matter. We know that Bo Nix has now started more games than any other FBS quarterback in history at 54. I'm not going to say he's 35 years old, but he's closer to 35 years old than Bryson Barnes, who's starting quarterback at Utah. We also understand that Michael Penix Jr., one of the better quarterbacks in the sport, maybe a Heisman winner, also ancient by college football standards. But I think more about this is what can Morgan Scalley's defense do against Bo Nix and that offense? Because one of the things that I find most interesting about Oregon is they don't need Bo Nix to go out and be great, so he's much freer to operate like a quarterback that doesn't have it all on his shoulders. They got Bucky Irving and Jordan James back there with over 1,100 yards and about 6 yards per carry, 15 TDs over these first several games. And then Troy Franklin is a Biletnikoff Award finalist, I think, right? I think he leads the Pac-12 in receiving TDs as well. It's not just that the offense is good. I mean, and by the way, very good. We're talking about number 1 in FBS for offense, 551.6 yards per game. Number 2 in scoring at 47 a game. And by the way, they take care of the football. They've only given it away just one time. That was an interception against Colorado. Jaquez Robinson coming up with the goods in Autzen. But for Utah, this really is a game for which we get to know whether or not you are in a great position to defend your Pac-12 and win it for the third time in a row. But this is not a team that's been like the last 2 years, notably because Bryson Barnes is at quarterback. And Utah's probably the only program in the history of the world that can make Bryson Barnes into a winner, but that's just what he has done at Utah. He's been a winner, pig farming and all of it, but he's had lots of help. Number 1, that Morgan Scalley defense has just been nasty. By the way, high key, Morgan Scalley ought to be a Broyles Award finalist for what he has done just through this first half of the season. And coaches need to let the Broyles Award committee know they are nominating one of their coordinators for the award. When we start doing this thing on November 13th, and I got a vote this year, and so I'm very much invested in it, but it's really difficult to look at Utah and not be just impressed with what they can do defensively and how they found a way to make this thing work offensively. Now, I mentioned Bryson Barnes, who came up with a really big play to give Utah an opportunity to win that game at the Coliseum last week. But the guy that has been really stealing headlines is Sione Vaki. Like, the Vaki Viper has been violent for them against Cal, 158 rush yards, right? And then against USC, 217 rushing and receiving. This is a man with 4 TDs, but also the second leading tackler at Utah, and has a sack and an interception as a safety. I came into this year, like many of you, thinking Emeka Buka and Travis Hunter would be the guys that win the Paul Hornung Award, which is given to the guy who's the best all-purpose player in the sport. But Sione Vaki here of lately is going, no, you got to include me in this. And to see them be able to pull that dude off of the defense, have him going both ways, I'm just impressed by that. So if he can get going against this Oregon defense that has been, frankly, giving it up here of late, maybe Utah can pull off yet another stunner to me. I understand that some folks are going, hey, how is that win against SC an upset? I'm like, well, if you just take a look at what SC had and what Utah had, Notably, not having Cam Rising, you can see how we all come to that, especially with that game being in the Coliseum. I'm really interested to see if Bo Nix gets into that pressure cooker situation, whether or not Dan Lanning still wants to be aggressive with the offense, because that was another point of contention against Washington. If you're going for it on fourth down against Utah, you better pick it up because they're not going to give you the ball back very easily. And they like being able to take your will on third and fourth downs. Like Dan Lanning wants to be aggressive, but there's being aggressive. And then there's getting your behind kicked because you make some bad coaching decisions. And this has been a season where we've seen our share of coaching mistakes. The 10 men at Notre Dame against Ohio State. We've seen running the football instead of taking a knee against Georgia Tech if you're Miami, right? Not getting up to play a team like Virginia from North Carolina. And this team you ought to see coming in Utah because quiet as it is kept, Utah is the two-time defending Pac-12 champ. And we tend to think that the Pac-12 champ this year will get a team into the college football playoff. This game could do a lot about deciding which one of these programs the College Football Playoff Selection Committee thinks is best. Now, Washington ought to be ranked ahead of either one of these because both of these teams have a loss. But you understand, if one of these teams is ranked closer to Washington, if they come in at, say, 5, 6, or even 4, we feel much better about one of those two teams getting into the college football playoff. Again, I can't stress enough how important this game is if you're Oregon, because you already got that loss against Washington, right? And we already don't think that you played enough people for us to really think you're great. And the schedule is set up for the last half for you to actually stand up and be like, no, we're that team that we were a few years ago. Because remember, Oregon got in the college football playoff 2014, handed Florida State its head. We could be in that position once again, where we see a Florida State team and an Oregon team play each other. Or maybe we get Utah into this thing for the first time. Very excited to see how this one goes and interested to see which quarterback outplays the other, Bo Nix or Bryson Barnes, and which running back room outplays the other one, whether that's Utah with Sione Vaki leading the charge or the tandem that is Bucky Irvin and Jordan James. I'm going to be here for all of it. Very excited about it. All right. I'm going to pick Oregon in that game. Again, chalk here. I think Oregon is a balanced football team. I think that Tosh Lupoi and Dan Lanning are probably going to read that defense, the riot act, and say, hey, when Sione Vaki is on the field, maybe we're going to put a body on him, and we're going to make Bryson Barnes throw the football, which means you're probably going to try to load the box, and you're probably going to try to stop them running the football. If you can do that and let Bo Nix find Troy Franklin, let that running game get to work. Will Stein's been doing a great job. Also a guy that might be considered a Broyles Award finalist, depending on what happens in this game and the rest of the year. Yeah, I got Oregon here because I just think that they're better in the three phases than Utah, but all Utah has done is thumb its nose at not having Cam Rising and go get wins. All right, let's go from that game to that big noon game. That is number 6, Oklahoma at Kansas. That's 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Fox in Lawrence. Now, Oklahoma comes into this thing favored by 10, right? And you got to understand why. They're undefeated. They're giving up 16.1 per game. And, Oklahoma getting through the month of October unscathed is definitely a thing. But it's been kind of squirrely the last few years. Now, I got up to a 7-0 start in 2019, and then Kansas State came up with that big win against them. Kansas in that position again. They did in 2021. We'll get to that in just a second here, but not to get too far ahead of this thing, but Oklahoma's owned Kansas. There's no getting around it. That's not a dunk. That's just a fact. Oklahoma's won 18 in a row against the Kansas Jayhawks dating back to 1997. Okay? And it gets kind of worse for Kansas on this front because as much as I love Lance Leipold, it's been a bugaboo for him against really great football teams. Now, Kansas is in a much better spot because they're beating the teams they're supposed to beat. They just aren't beating the teams that are supposed to beat them. They've allowed 40 points per game and 480.6 yards per game in the 7 games that they have played against ranked opponents in the Lance Leipold era, right? Latest we saw this was what Texas was able to do against Kansas just a few weeks ago. But it's also just really hard to say how good this Kansas team is. They're 5-2. So I know they're good. It's just how good. It's a team that will rush for 399 yards and put up 51 points on a Central Florida team that gave Oklahoma fits and without John Rice Plumlee, right? It's also the kind of football team that will see Jason Bean, who is the second string quarterback, throw for 410 yards against Oklahoma State, but lose that game 39-32. The lesson here is not, hey, if they get Jalen Daniels back, they're a different football team, though I think they'll play differently. I think Jason Bean being your number 2 just means your depth is absolutely nasty. I mean, it's real difficult to look at Jason Bean and say that's a QB2 because he's a QB1 for almost everybody else. But the point to raise here is they can beat you throwing the ball or running the ball, right? Mention what Jason Bean was able to do. I'm also looking at Devin Neal and Daniel Hishaw, who are they absolutely can tote that barge, lift that bale, carry the mail. Between those guys, 1,100 rush yards, 1,096, right? And they're averaging a nice number of 6.9 yards per clip. Now, on top of all of that, Andy Kotelnicki has been really great at identifying what your weakness is and just beating you to death with it. Again, throw the ball for 410 yards against a soft secondary at Oklahoma State. Run the ball up and down Central Florida for 399. It's going to be interesting to see which one of those he picks to try to beat Oklahoma. So, what are Oklahoma's weaknesses going into this game? Well, as I mentioned, getting through the month of October for starters, because until 2019, Oklahoma had not got through the month of October undefeated since 2004. That was also the year that Oklahoma went undefeated into the national championship game, and Matt Leinart and USC beat us so badly that we were booing Ashley Simpson at halftime. So either way, since 2000, it ain't been going our way, right? Now, this Kansas team is certainly the kind that could beat up on Oklahoma. Oklahoma gets a really great win against Kansas, and they get a big margin of victory. Maybe they get into that top 4, but that's not really what you want for Oklahoma, because check this out. In all 4 of the college football playoff appearances for the Sooners, they never once started out as one of the 4 top teams in the initial college football playoff selection committee rankings. I would like that to be the same. Put Florida State in the dunker spot and don't mind Oklahoma. But even more than that, we're going to get to see whether or not this Oklahoma defense is actually fracturing or if the teams beneath them have actually gotten good. Again, I mentioned that Kansas is 5-2. So is Oklahoma State. So is BYU, right? The gap is closing up here. But for the Sooners, it's all about survive and advance. That means win this football game any way you got to win it, and put 8-0 up in front of the committee and tell them to go fight you with it and say, we got a new head coach there in Brent Venables who knows how to do this, right? He's won national championships at Oklahoma and then at Clemson. So if you win an ugly game, that's fine. Just get through the month of October unscathed. But a convincing win would be helpful, right? I don't think that Florida State is that good, but the AP voters do, and I expect the College Football Playoff Selection Committee will ride with that. I think Florida State is good. They're just 2014 good, which is good enough to go through the rest of their schedule undefeated and show up to the College Football Playoff, get their head handed to them. However, Oklahoma really does need to show the kind of defensive performance that they did prior to last week, honestly, right? I thought it was interesting that Oklahoma won this game by 2 points like you, or I was actually terrified. But 2 things on that. One, Zach Schmidt missed 2 field goals in that game that probably changed the complexion of the game, maybe open it up a little bit, maybe lead to a more back-breaking style of win for Oklahoma against a really not great Central Florida team, right? Also missed a very big field goal against Texas. He's still going to be the starting place kicker, but while he's been perfect with extra points in his career, he's just 9-13 kicking the field goals. Now, the other point to raise there is that last week was the first week that Oklahoma's defense did not create a turnover, which means the Oklahoma offense actually kept up its end when the Oklahoma defense wasn't playing at an elite level. That's not too shabby, especially when you take into account that Oklahoma is one of the 2 best teams in the country in turnover margin, the other one being Penn State. They've created 15 turnovers. They've only given the ball away 3 times, and then they get Tawee Walker back from an in-house suspension to help them run the football a little bit better against a Kansas team that they're going to need to control, that's led by Kenny Logan on defense. I think he's got 45 tackles this year. He's on pace to have over 100. They're good enough to put you on the ground, and you can't let that Kansas offense get going. The reason I say that is Oklahoma gave up 527 yards and 30 points to Texas. Now it's Texas, right? That's a national title contender. I'm going to let that slide. But giving up 398 to Central Florida in 29, again, not a great look. This is a team that's given up at least 20 points or more in each of the last 3 outings. But again, it's just given up 16.1 this season. But it's getting tough here, right? Kansas is getting better. Oklahoma State is absolutely thriving. While we're here, I'm just going to go ahead and raise the alarm on Ollie Gordon at Oklahoma State for those of y'all that don't know. That tailback is as good as Daniel Hishaw and Devin Neal. 121 against Iowa State, 136 against Kansas State, 168 against Kansas, 282 against West Virginia, and the Bedlam's in 11 days, okay? So if you can succeed in not putting the Conestoga before Boomer and Sooner take care of Kansas, then Bedlam actually gets to be really big, and it's going to be the last Bedlam that we see for the foreseeable future. So we're already kind of hyped up about that. Given all of this, I'm still picking Oklahoma. I mean, obviously, right? But I would like to see Oklahoma play sound football offensively and defensively. Don't give the ball away. Take the ball away a couple of times. Get Danny Stutzman out there making tackles. Let's see what else Peyton Bowen can do, because I think that might be the best safety that Oklahoma has had since Tony Jefferson. Tackling machine. Back when Mike didn't have a defense, he just funneled everything to Tony, who can make tackles. They got that kind of talent all over the defense this year, and Ted Roof might be up for the Broyles Award too, guys. Like, I came into the season going, I don't know if that guy's it. Give it up 30 a game and 400 a game. This year, he's going, yeah, RJ, how's that smell? It smells nice. It smells undefeated. I like being undefeated and perfect and 7-0 going into Lawrence, Kansas. So Oklahoma, take care of your business, and then we'll see what the College Football Playoff Selection Committee says on Tuesday night. If you like what you've seen, consider subscribing to the #1 college football show on YouTube, the Fox Sports app, or wherever you get your podcast.